You're listening to the Telltale Channel. In this podcast, after the assassination attempt against Donald Trump, I figure it's worth our time to talk about how we got here. How is political violence so accepted in society? Let's talk about Republican governor candidate Mark Robinson's comments that some people just need killing, quote unquote. Qanonner Lara Logan used to be a respected journalist. She worked for CBS News from 2004 to 2008, but she built up deep credibility within the field of investigative journalism. And then she went down the QAnon rabbit hole. One might call her a Q-hole. Anyway, she went on a 3-minute nonsensical rant about the deep state and the cabal coming for her. It was actually very entertaining. Steve Deace is a Republican political commentator on Glenn Beck's network, The Blaze. He said some very bizarre things about the left. Apparently, the dude thinks drag queens are doing unspeakable things to children while reading a book to them. It's so ridiculous, it's crossed over to hilarious. Well, he was just chosen to rewrite the Oklahoma social studies curriculum, along with the leader of Project 2025, the propagandist David Barton, and many other characters of ill repute. Let's talk about how they got there, what plausible and reasonable effect they'll have on the curriculum, and what to do next. We also take voicemails. If you want to leave a voicemail, the number is 1-800-701-8573. If your voicemail is shorter than 60 seconds, I'm virtually guaranteed to hear it. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. There's a lot of speculation about Joe Biden's health. So I want to address that today. Is this real or is this propaganda? I have a real answer for you.
Hello, Owen. This is Ron from Tennessee. Like I say, I love what you're doing and everything. I learn something new every day when I watch your show. But I want to get to the debate between Biden and Trump.
The debate, yeah.
I think Biden's a whole lot better than Trump, but people on the Democratic side keep, putting Biden down. I was wondering, how do you think the debate went? Thank you very much, man, and please take care of yourself and your family. Bye.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Regular caller. Call back in. And anybody else can call in, too. 1-800-701-8573. In 2016, NBC News published this article, Hillary Clinton's Health Scare, 9 Unanswered Questions. Hillary Clinton tripped while getting into her car or something, like her foot bumped into the curb. She didn't fall or anything. Her foot just bumped the curb. And then we get articles like this. All over the place. Like wallpaper. This is NBC News, okay? This is supposed to be like a trustworthy news website right here. As Hillary Clinton's health moves from the fringes to the center of the 2016 presidential campaign, there's a lot we still don't know about her scare this weekend. The scare, bumping her foot into the curb. Now, how does this compare to Biden, who could barely pick up any words? He couldn't think of anything. I don't believe that Biden had a bad debate night. I don't think he did. I think he had one bad moment where he couldn't come up with a word. And I'm chalking that up to the fact that he's had a stutter since he's little. The fact that he's 80, yeah, maybe he's had a little bit of slowdown. And the fact that he's on a debate stage with somebody and democracy is resting on his shoulders right now. After that moment, Biden did just fine. I didn't catch a single example of Biden having a cognitive problem or anything past one moment where he slipped up and couldn't remember a word. And as far as I'm concerned, that is the same as Hillary Clinton bumping her foot on a curb. Does that justify CNN's coverage of this? Since the debate happened, Donald Trump had an assassination attempt against his life, so CNN has switched subjects. But when this debate happened originally, within 2 weeks, it was wall to wall on CNN. It was nothing but Biden should drop out. Is Biden cognitively okay? Biden is sick. Biden can't do this. Biden needs to be replaced. Over and over and over. That's all they talked about on CNN. That might be because CNN is now owned by a billionaire who's a Trump supporter, and it's moving slowly toward the right. It has been for a while now. Anyway, no matter what you think about it, this is a propaganda campaign against Biden, no matter what. Is the campaign justified, or is it based on a grain of truth? I don't believe so. You even get articles like this on AP News. Biden at 81, often sharp and focused, but sometimes confused and forgetful. Okay, that's kind of a propagandistic name for an article, but all right, let's read it. This is so sad, too, because this is AP News. I trust AP News generally. See if we can pick out any problems here. Joe Biden's conduct behind closed doors in the Oval Office on Air Force One and in the meetings around the world is described in the same dual way by those who regularly see him in action. Who? Who are these people who regularly see him in action who are describing it this way? Do you have a source? Could you even tell me that it's an anonymous source? I'll take anything at all. No, they're using weasel words. They're appealing to some authority, some ambiguous source out there that they don't even attempt to name. Weasel words. This does not belong in a news article, ever. This article is a failure on the part of AP News, and it would be if it was Donald Trump, too, if they framed it like that for Trump. That's not even the worst part. Like, it goes on and it gets even worse than that. This article does. He's often sharp and focused, but he also has moments, particularly later in the evening, when his thoughts seem jumbled and he trails off mid-sentence or seems confused. How do they know that he's often sharp and focused? Who told them that? Who told them that he trails off in the evening, like sundowning as you get with dementia? Who told them? For the record, Biden and Trump, neither of them have Alzheimer's disease, okay? Neither of them. Or most forms of dementia. I don't know of any form of dementia that lasts this long. With Alzheimer's disease, for example, it comes in 3 stages. Stage 1, you walk into a room and you forget why you entered. You can't find your keys anywhere. You're forgetting everything. You know, sometimes you can't pick out that name. That lasts 2 years. Stage 2, you now have moments of lucidity, where sometimes you remember people and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you remember your own kid, sometimes not. You're living in the past. Sometimes you believe that you're like 27 and you're acting as though the people around you are the ones that were around you when you were 27 years old. That's 2 more years, okay? We're up to 4 years, and that's impossible to hide at that point. Stage 3, years 4 to 6, is where you are laying in bed having diapers changed because you're completely gone. You have no idea where you are or what's happening or who these people are around you or anything. So Biden and Donald Trump have 4 years, honestly, really 2 or 3 years before it's noticeable and obvious and can't be hidden anymore. Biden could not, neither could Trump, neither could go out on a stage if they were in stage 2 or even probably in late stage 1. Couldn't do it. Neither of them have Alzheimer's disease or dementia. This is just another Hillary Clinton thing. She was healthy then. She's healthy now. Biden is healthy. Okay, I don't want to hear any of this nonsense about Biden is too demented to function or whatever. Oh, and one more thing on this subject, since I'm talking about it. Presidents don't run the country. They've never run the country since day one. Okay, you know who runs the country? The people who they tell to run the country. Their aides, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the military commanders. The president is there to tell people what to do, and everybody else runs it. Is Biden capable of making a decision? Yes. As a matter of fact, like his decisions and Trump's and FDR's and whoever, Thomas Jefferson's, their decisions weren't even made like by them most of the time. The decisions were written up in like a daily brief, and you're given a set of options, like 3 options. They say, pick one. Okay, Afghanistan is harboring Osama bin Laden and we know where he is. Decision A, we go in guns blazing. If you do this, you're going to kill some kids. Decision B, leave him alone. He's irrelevant now. Decision C, send in a tactical strike force. Now pick one, A, B, or C. Which is it going to be? That's what the president does. He picks A, B, or C. Because his advisors know way more about these subjects than he does, than I do, than anybody does. Okay, the president could call up an expert in any field, quantum mechanics, and sit down in the floor, cross-legged, with your hands clasped, eating an applesauce or something, while this expert in the world, the best expert in the world on this subject, explains it to you how this works. Presidents don't need to be able to, like, lift, deadlift 80 pounds or something. They don't need to do that. They don't need split-second decision-making, like driving a car or something. They don't need to. They have people to do split-second stuff for them and draw up lists. They have 5 minutes to think about their next move. Biden's fine. He's perfectly capable of running the country, is my point here. In my opinion, this is all propaganda to help Trump and to hurt Biden. That's simple. Tell me what you think about it. It wasn't just the debate, though. The press conference was a disaster. I don't remember I'm not sure which press conference. I mean, that could be, but let me tell you this. He's not demented. If he were demented, he wouldn't be able to remember certain things. He would revert back to a certain age. Like, he'd revert back to when he's 30 or something. They would never, ever dare put somebody who was demented in front of a crowd. It would be impossible to hide if they did that. And dementia is, as I'm sure Jen Has Cookies knows, a brutal disease. Brutal. I'm lucky that I've never had to deal with it one-on-one personally yet. But as they say, best case scenario, you're going to live to see every friend and family member you ever knew die, right? That's how it's going to be, so sorry. Hopefully, hopefully I don't have to deal with dementia specifically because it's so brutal. I can cherry pick a billion examples of Donald Trump being completely out of his head. But can the guy sit down and have a long-form conversation, recall people's names, recall certain events, and give specific answers that are relevant to the topic at hand? The answer is yes, Donald Trump can do that. And so can Biden. We can watch both of them live. They both do rallies. So I'm sure, yeah, Donald Trump has the odd moment here or there where he slips up on a word. The United States of America. Yeah, he says that stuff all the time. But is this the kind of thing where it's like impossible for him to function on a day-to-day basis? It's impossible for him to sit down and have this conversation? No, that's not the case for Trump or Biden. His staff released that info about him being okay between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Oh, perfect. Those are working hours. Yeah, I get beat to shit after those hours too. Why do you think I start my streams at 10:30? It's not daytime before 10:30. When they say okay between the hours of 10 and 4, I'm not sure what that means. What did they mean by that? Did they mean that he's completely out of his head, demented, incapable of processing conversations after 4 p.m.? Or does it just mean he starts getting worn down and he needs to take a break? I'm not sure what that means. My mom has dementia. Biden doesn't have dementia, but he has cognitive decline. Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm sure Biden and Trump both have the same cognitive decline that anybody that age would have. But Biden is still sharp as a tack, still capable of recalling information that's relevant to the conversation, still rides his bike around and shit. And on top of all of that, Biden fell on his bike and was fine. That should say something about him. Okay, he fell on his bike. You remember that a while back? And he turned out just fine. Anyway, either way, I mean, I'm sure that basically everybody watching here is going to vote for Biden anyway, so it doesn't really matter. There's definitely a propaganda campaign running right now against Biden. That's my point. Not working hours for a president. A president works 24 hours a day. His staff leaked that he was confused after 4 p.m., and he said the George Stephanopoulos interview that his staff talks too much. He didn't deny it. Okay, I don't know. That's a little shaky. My staff talks too much is kind of an old-timey way of saying they're full of it. And you know Joe Biden with old-timey sayings like malarkey and alley cat. Morals of an alley cat. Still disagree with you. Okay, that's okay. Can't convince everybody. I hope that we can just meet on this one. There is a propaganda campaign running against him on this subject from Fox News, at the very least. I hope that we can agree on that. And that the things that we hear about it, we should accept it with skepticism because of that. I don't think it's propaganda. I think it's true. CNN says the same thing. even if it's true, it's still a propaganda campaign. Things can still be true and framed like propaganda. Like, propaganda is the framing device, true or not. Let me put it this way. Israel attacking Palestine is wrong, disgusting, evil. It's a genocide, and I'm sure that we can agree there, right? But there is pro-Palestine propaganda, and there's pro-Israel propaganda. It doesn't mean it's true or false. Here, let me show you. Since we're talking about propaganda, there's this subreddit called r/propaganda posters. Let's just kind of glance through some of the propaganda posters because I think some of them are fascinating. Here's a good one. This was a cartoon that was drawn in New York City. What was it? The New Yorker cartoonist Danny Shanahan in 2012 drew this. It's a Muslim woman in a burqa standing over a subway vent like Marilyn Monroe. The skirt is blowing up, and you can see dynamite sticks around her. Have Muslims strapped dynamite sticks around themselves and blown themselves up? Yes, that is true. That's factual. Do Muslims wear burqas? Yes, they do. Everything in this is true, but it's framed in a propagandistic way to give a very specific feel, like a look and feel, to give you certain ideas and feelings and thoughts about this subject. Here's another propaganda poster. This ruined Europe. Never let it happen over here. Where is this one from? This is American poster by Chester Raymond Miller / Kelly Reed and Company for Think American Institute, U.S., 1943. There's a knife being shoved between two gears that say labor and management. So the idea is that labor should just work with management. They should just cooperate with management, shut their mouths, accept their pay, and move on. And it's true that there is disunity between labor and management in Europe. That's a factual statement. But that's a good thing, because big corporations are trying to milk everything they can out of their labor force for as little money as humanly possible. This is like an anti-union poster kind of thing, you know. Anyway, that's the way I see the Biden thing. It can be propagandistic and true simultaneously. Here, you should obey the fishing laws. That's factual. Fishing laws are there for a reason. Obey the fishing laws. This means you. This is propaganda. This is a propaganda poster. With peace and love, if you only saw the debate and not the press conference or those two interviews I mentioned, how can you form an informed opinion? Because I see all kinds of other things from him. I didn't only see the debate. And just because I didn't see two specific things that you mentioned doesn't mean I saw nothing. Anyway, yeah, tell me what you think about it.
Hi, Owen. This is Sarah from Wisconsin. I just had an interesting question that I wanted to bring up with you. If all right-wing QAnon, extremists and all of them, just as a whole, were to suddenly have a moment of clarity and realize that they've been lied to this entire time, what do you think would be the results of that? Just, not based off of necessarily evidence, but based off of just intuition and patterns that you see. Anyway, love what you do. Keep up the good work. Have a good one. Bye.
I appreciate that. Well, it depends on what you mean, or let me rephrase. It depends on the level to which they realize that they're being lied to. Like, I'm being lied to. You're being lied to. Everybody's being lied to at all times. That's just like the nature of society, right? The Democrats are lying to us about this thing or that thing. Republicans lying about this or that. So when you say that, do you mean the QAnoners realize that they're being lied to about everything? If so, they would likely drop political parties but only ever vote for Democrats moving forward because the Republicans wronged them so egregiously. When I left Jehovah's Witnesses behind, I was so disgusted and repulsed by what they did to me, by the lies that they told me, that I went as far in the other direction as I possibly could. Even though a lot of other people are lied to on a daily basis about similar things and to similar degrees, even though others were lying to me about different things, I was so invested in this thing. I believed it so deeply that lie cut me down to the soul, and I was done. So I believe that if QAnon just woke up like that and realized, oh, this is all nonsense, they would probably become Democrats, if for no other reason than because they want to go the exact opposite direction of where they were before. Like when I was in college, this is when I first started to realize what was going on, you know. I used to watch Dusty Smith back in the day, Cult of Dusty, you know, and he sold shirts that said, "He's not coming back, get over it." And it was a picture of Jesus on the cross. And I wore that shit into my class. My professor was like an evangelical believer and really upset with it. But I was just so sick of it. I was so infuriated by what had just happened to me that I wanted to make a clear point. That's what would happen probably. And Democrats would never lose again. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. It's like a long, drawn-out process to get somebody to kind of come out of this stupor. I mean, atheists have been working at destroying the lies that extremist religions tell for who knows how long. And we've only claimed about 6% of the United States population. A total of 30% have just walked away from religion entirely at this point, roughly. But this has been an ongoing thing for like decades, nay, centuries. So QAnon is here to stay, in my opinion, and we just have to pick them off one by talking to them, by reasoning with them. That's the only way to do it. Is QAnon still a thing? Yes, absolutely, and it's getting bigger again. So with viral things, it goes in waves like this. I don't know why it works that way. It just does. With real-life viruses and with internet trends, let me show you. When you get a bigger wave, the peak determines where the next base is going to be. So it goes up, and then it peaks, and then it goes down and dips, and then it goes up higher than before. It's on an upward trend with viruses and with internet stuff, basically. Unless that thing is not producing anything anymore. Unless nobody is invested in it anymore. Like the Haktua girl, you know? She's going to fade into obscurity in a year, max. She does not have long. Unless she tries to ride that fame into something bigger. Like if she has a reality TV show, she will never reach that peak that she was at previously. Because that was like her golden moment. But it'll keep going. Let me show you just an example. Let's look at... this is Social Blade. If you don't know Social Blade, it's an analytics system for like YouTube and Twitter. And let me just look at somebody random. See, you can see that it kind of goes up and down, up and down, up and down. Interesting. He's been in a dip here for a while. I wonder what that's about. I've also been in a dip for a while. If you expand this out even further, which I don't think you can in this, well, this is kind of okay, but you can see it goes up and down, up and down. That's just the nature of viral trends. This is how it works. Anyway, QAnon goes into dips regularly and then peaks and dips and peaks and dips. It reached its peak in 2017, and that's probably the highest it will ever be. But like Flat Earth, it will never be completely gone. Like, we can go to Google Trends and look this stuff up. Hang on, let me show you. Let's just search for, you can search for anything. Let's search for Flat Earth. Okay, hang on. Past 12 months, Flat Earth. Okay, we can see a trend line here, and we can see that there was a big jump on April 7th to 13th. I'm not sure what happened on that day. I don't remember. But let's look at the past 5 years, okay? See, there's a big peak and dip and peak and dip. I don't know what happened right here on February 23rd, 2020. I guess this is when COVID hit, and people were probably bored as sin sitting in their homes and decided to look up Flat Earth. Let's check QAnon. Let's compare Flat Earth to QAnon on Google Trends. Wow, check that out. So QAnon's peak was January 10th, 2021. And before that, there was an even bigger peak, August 16th, 2020. But it hit a pretty big peak March 15th, 2020. Fascinating. See if we can do 2004 to present. Yeah, see, 2018 right here, August 2018. That's when it really started exploding. I had no idea that it blew up that big in January 2021. Look at this. Flat Earth was exploding February 2017 also. Is that the result of Donald Trump getting into office, I wonder? Well, you can check worldwide, too. Let's check worldwide. Let's check Afghanistan. There's one guy searching QAnon in Afghanistan. That one dude. Anyway, yeah. So the point is that QAnon is in a peak right now. It may not be a very big peak, but it is peaking. Hold on. See, it looks like it's going up right now. You can see it. It had another peak in November 2023. It had a pretty decently large peak. Yeah, I don't believe it'll ever go away. I wonder if I'm on here and how I compare to QAnon. Oh, look, I got a little bump right here. There's a little bump, a little Owen Morgan-sized bump right here. How about that? 1 to QAnon's 20. I'm 1/20th the size of QAnon. I'll take it. I'll take anything. Hell, I'm glad for it. Check just the United States. Does that change anything? Yes! Oh my god, in the US, it's 1 to 17. I will take that. Although there is one other Owen Morgan, he's an actor, so I may be leeching off his success here. I don't know. Let's get rid of QAnon. Just erase it. When was I most famous? I was most famous November 2023, apparently. Maybe that's because QAnon was most famous at the time. Let's do 2004 to present. Wait. I started doing YouTube in Well, I came out with my name in like 2018, so these bumps right here are probably me. Boom, boom, boom. These are likely me, the big bumps. Let's see what's going on with Telltale Atheist. Oh, look, I got a little tiny one right here. All right, I'll take that. I'll take it. Whatever I can get, I'll take it. It's a cute bump. I'll take that, right? Wow, this is a really big bump. May 2006. I wasn't operating in 06. Did somebody steal my name in 06? Yeah, no one is searching for Telltale Owen Morgan. Anyway, so yeah, that's the thing. I don't believe that QAnon will ever fully go away.
Hi, Owen. This is Sammy from North Carolina, and I had a question. Feel free to answer if I'm just bad at wording this. But if the Watchtower organization wasn't really the main be-all, end-all for the majority of Jehovah's Witnesses throughout the country, if it was just a regular religion like any Protestant or Catholic churches in the area, do you think the Jehovah's Witnesses would have as much flack or baggage attached to them if it wasn't for the reigning governing body of elders and the organization itself? It was just a regular religion. Do you think that Jehovah's Witnesses would be in the state they are today? It would be interesting hearing your thoughts. I have never been a witness. I have had interactions with them. But from an outside perspective, I really think that if they were just a standard religious practice without the Watchtower organization behind them, I don't think that you could classify it as a cult. But again, I don't know. So I'd really love to hear your thoughts about it.
Let me lay this out for you. Follow my analogy for a second. With viruses like COVID, for example, or Ebola, its ability to spread is hampered or bolstered by how deadly it is. So Ebola isn't a worldwide pandemic that's killing 90% of the world's population right now, because when it gets into a person, it kills that person way too quickly, like too soon for it to transmit to another person. COVID was in a kind of a Goldilocks zone where it was the perfect amount of not quite deadly enough to kill everybody, but extremely contagious. So it spread to like a ton of people throughout the world. And despite the fact that it only has a death rate of, 1% or something, it killed millions and millions of people. Where Ebola has a death rate of 90%, but it doesn't kill that many people every year, I don't think. With religions, there is a similar phenomenon happening. When there's a deeper buy-in, when there's a deeper, a more expensive social cost for being a member, they're not going to bring in as many people, but the ones that they do bring in are going to be loyal to the death. So with Scientology, for example, you have to... There's an actual cost, like not just a social cost, like you lose all your friends and family. You have to pay money to be a Scientologist. Estimates vary from, I'm getting these numbers from Chris Shelton and other ex-Scientologists. The numbers vary from 100,000 to go clear, which is you're really high in the organization, to 400,000 to become like one of the operating thetan levels, which is one of the highest levels you can get, between $100,000 and $400,000. The higher the cost, social, financial, otherwise, the fewer people you're going to have. But the Scientologists at the very top will be there until the day that they die. The Jehovah's Witnesses that operate in Bethel will never leave. Never. You know why? Because realizing that it was all fake means that their whole life was a waste. It was all a lie. That's the way that people see it. Every now and then you do get people who defect. Like there's a governing body member, Jehovah's Witnesses, who defected, surprisingly, Ray France. So if it was a regular religion that didn't have these high social costs, it wouldn't be a cult, and it would more easily spread to more people. Like look at, just look at Methodists. There's a low buy-in to be a Methodist. You don't have to change much about your life. You don't have to hate anybody if you don't want. All you have to do is love Jesus, basically. That's it. Just love Jesus. And Methodists are everywhere as a result. Everywhere. Another interesting phenomenon that results from this whole scenario is culture. Just regular culture in the country. We live in a culture that is predominantly Christian. Look at it another way. If you wanted to convert to Judaism here in the United States, it would require a lot of work. You would have to stop eating pork and shellfish. You'd have to start praying a certain number of times a day. You'd have to observe certain holidays and not observe others. But in Israel, it's not so hard. The social cost isn't as high because there's no pork on the shelves anyway. Like there's no bacon for sale. There's no sausage for sale. It doesn't matter. It's not a struggle to do this. So there might be a high social cost in a vacuum, but in the culture in which you exist, the social cost may not be as high. So we live in a Christian culture in the United States today. It's easier to become a Christian of any sort at all. There's a lower buy-in to be a Christian in the United States than it is in Saudi Arabia, for example. Anyway, if Jehovah's Witnesses were a regular religion and not extreme, didn't require a high buy-in to be a member, they would have significantly more people, significantly more donors and laborers and members across the spectrum. There are a lot of religions in the United States that take those things in varying degrees. So the public can be normal. There's low buy-in to just to be a normal member of this religion. But you can take it up another level. Kick it up a notch, if you will, by joining the UMC, United Methodist Conference, by joining the UMC and becoming like a delegate for your church, or becoming a pastor who like lives in the parish and stuff. There's another level of buy-in that guarantees you will never leave. That's really the best system for any social group at all. Low social buy-in to simply be a member, high social buy-in to go further.
Hey, Owen, this is Chris from Florida. I am made about 5 hours of overtime in 3 days. I'm tired, underpaid, and overworked. But you want to know something? You brighten my day every time I see a video of yours on YouTube. I search for anything that you do, and I really greatly appreciate everything. From one person to another, thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
I appreciate that. I'm glad I could make somebody's day better. When I worked at like Lowe's years ago, I just waking up in the morning, the first thought that popped into my head was, oh my God, I have to go to this stupid building again and look at those stupid bricks and walk through those stupid sliding glass doors again. I would do nearly anything to not have to do that anymore. So I 100% understand how you feel about having to work your nuts off for less than you're worth. And I'm glad I could contribute in some small way to make things better. I appreciate it. I'm lucky enough now that I work constantly. It's nearly nonstop how much I work, but I enjoy my work. I like doing it. And it's not just streaming. I do a lot of streaming, but I mean, I'm editing 90% of the time. Either if I'm not editing, then I'm scripting, writing outlines, or I'm really a writer over anything else. But I enjoy the job. When you find something that you like doing, you'll never have to work another day in your life, as they say. I mean, I still have to work, and I still have to put things off that I want to do rather than this. Like, I would like to go out to the park instead of sitting here writing or something, for example, but it's much more tolerable. So I hope that you find that niche for yourself. I hope you find that thing that makes it more tolerable so you don't have to worry about that anymore. Even taking less money is worth it. If you enjoy the job, it's worth it. Anyway, thanks for the message.
Hi, Owen. This is Ezra. I'm from California. I've been watching your videos and doing some soul searching since that's my situation right now. And I just wanted to hear about your take of people saying witchcraft is this, witchcraft is that. I kind of concluded that witchcraft is kind of like a shield of ignorance. And I just wanted to know what's your take on that? Do you have any thoughts? Do you disagree? Do you agree? I just wanted to see what you would think. Hope you hear this soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by witchcraft. So the question is, as far as I can tell, is what are my thoughts on witchcraft, right? The evangelical view on witchcraft is that witches have the ability to do all kinds of things, fortune telling and divination and whatever other thing they do, Miss Cleo style, like taking phone calls online and giving you your future or whatever, tarot card readings and all that. Christians believe that witches are capable of those things, but they get their power from Satan, which is not what witches believe. And some Christians, like Greg Locke, for example, believe that they can do all the same things witches can do, but they get their power from God rather than from Satan. Anyway, there's a group of witches, if you could call it that. Really, it's pagans, neo-pagans. There's a group of pagans out there who have covens and everything, who believe that they're part of an unbroken line dating all the way back. But this pagan group has an origin, actually. In, I think, the 1940s or the 1950s, there's a guy that was traveling around the world and claimed to have found a group of practicing pagans who had been practicing for generations, thus forming an unbroken line for centuries. But he lied. It wasn't an unbroken line. He never found a group like that. But he founded paganism, like modern-day paganism, and wrote a whole bunch of stuff about his capabilities to do things and how you're supposed to form out your groups and things like that. I don't believe any of it. I think it's all... You know what? I think if any of it was real, if people had the ability to read others' fortunes or change the future in some way or change the past or whatever, the military would have weaponized it a long time ago. All I need is evidence that this is real. That's it. I just need evidence. And I change my mind. I'll flip on a dime. So anyway, that's how I view it intellectually. Just person to person. I know a ton of people who are like pagans, neo-pagans and witches and things, and I have no problem with that. Great. They're a religious minority group, just like I am a religious minority group, which is non-Christian. And I came from a previous religious minority group, which is Jehovah's Witness. So I totally get it. We're in the same boat. We want the same things: to gain the right to practice our religions or not practice religion at all the way that we see fit. We want the same things. We can work together. That's the way I see it. That being said, my sister, she's all over the internet. She does podcasts and things with people that I know, smaller creators and things. Her username, I think, is 6-bit. Her name's Carrie. Anyway, she believes in things that I don't believe in. She accepts things that I don't accept. I don't know if she accepts paganism as real or witchcraft. I think she did at some point. She believes in ghosts, I believe. And also, she was once an anti-vaxxer. I don't think she's an anti-vaxxer anymore, but she has questionable views about autism and things that I just disagree with completely. So you can disagree and it's fine. In fact, I like disagreeing with people. I like working things out and talking it through and, going back and forth. I like that process. I like being around people with whom I can disagree and not even argue, but just kind of battle, It's fun. Intellectually, it's fun. I love finding something that I disagree with my wife on because we can talk about it back and forth and figure it out until one of us agrees with the other. Anyway, that's the way I see it. All right, tell me what you think about it in the comments. Thank you guys so much for the messages. Next up, after the assassination attempt against Donald Trump, I figure it's worth our time to talk about how we got here. How is political violence so accepted in society? Let's talk about Republican governor candidate Mark Robinson's comments that some people just need killing, quote unquote. We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. On screen here is a man named Mark Robinson. He is currently the lieutenant governor of North Carolina, I believe, and he's running for governor of North Carolina. Just listen to some of the things that Mark Robinson has had to say. This one is from early July 2024. See if maybe this connects and gives us insight into why our political discourse would be to the point where people are pulling out guns and shooting each other.
It was a time when we used to meet evil on the battlefield, and guess what we did to it? We killed it. We didn't quibble about it. We didn't argue about it. We didn't fight about it. We killed it.
Starting to see why we're in a situation in the United States where killing is an acceptable form of public discourse to some people?
When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, what did we do? We flew to Japan, and we killed the Japanese Army and Navy.
And citizens and civilians. But okay, go on.
We didn't even quibble about it. I didn't start this fight. You did. You wanted to be left alone. You should have left me alone. We didn't argue and capitulate and talk about, well, maybe we shouldn't fight the Nazis that hard. No, they're bad. Kill them.
And of course, who are the Nazis in his head? Me. You. People who are to the left of hunting the homeless for sport. People who think that that's wrong. Even if that isn't who the Nazis are you starting to see why we're in this position? Are you starting to see who is ramping up this rhetoric? Who is building this political environment into a gigantic fire and bringing it to a boil? Is anybody still left wondering why Donald Trump was attacked in an assassination attempt? By a Republican, by the way, not by a Democrat. For the record, a lot of assassination attempts like that aren't for any logical reason. A lot, like John Hinckley Jr. tried to kill Reagan, just got out of jail recently, by the way. He was trying to impress Jodie Foster. It wasn't even a political statement. So it's not even like people are trying to make political statements necessarily, but rhetoric like this is creating an environment in which it's okay to kill people in their heads.
Kill them. Some liberal somewhere is going to say that sounds awful. Too bad.
Well, it's not that it sounds awful. You're just a scumbag is all. And you're creating a dangerous environment. Like, I'm not offended by it or something. You think I'm offended? No, you're just a scumbag. You got people clapping in the background for this. Dude, are you kidding me?
Get mad at me if you want to.
Like, I'm not mad. You're just a scumbag, bro.
Some folks need killing. It's time for somebody to say it.
Any wonder why there was an assassination attempt against Trump? I can't believe there hasn't been a successful assassination attempt against Biden, or very nearly successful, like there was against Trump. I would be willing to bet there are assassination attempts against Biden practically every single day that are thwarted by the Secret Service.
It's not a matter of vengeance. It's not a matter of being mean or spiteful. It's a matter of necessity. We have wicked people doing wicked things, torturing and murdering, and it's time to call out those guys in green.
This is very obviously a call to violence, right?
Go have them handle it. With those boys in blue, and have them go handle it.
The boys in blue, the police. Get the police out there to go kill people. That's what he's saying right now. This is how we got here. This is how we reached this political environment. But through this kind of thing. And through the things that Donald Trump says.
We need to start handling our business again because, guys,
and handling our business means murdering people.
What I said at the beginning about you getting in your cars, listening to your radio, putting on what you want to put on, and saying what you want to put on, keep thinking about it. Don't you feel it slipping away?
You think you're not going to be able to say whatever you want to say? You can be a Nazi scumbag to your heart's content, and nobody is going to try to stop you, okay? Go nuts. It's when you move from rhetoric to real-world violence that it becomes a problem. There are no PC police. That department of the government does not exist, nor will it ever. What is wrong with him?
Don't you feel it slipping away? The further away we get from the concept of 1776 and why we declared our independence and how we declared our independence.
The point is, he's calling for violence. He's calling for violent revolution. Any wonder how we got here? If you don't know who this guy is, let me give you a little bit of context. I covered this clip like years ago, I think, at this point. Just listen to some of the ideas he has to lay down, if you will.
Let's go back and let's look at just a couple of examples in history, big examples in history. The writing of our own Constitution, when our Constitution was being crafted, it's told that those men, when they could no longer go further on their own wisdom, they went across the street to church and they prayed for wisdom from God.
No, that did not happen. That is made up. The Founding Fathers were secularists. The United States is the first big example of a secular government in the world. There have been smaller ones that popped up throughout history, but the U.S. is the great experiment in secularism, and it was successful until extremists tried to take it over. It's still successful at this moment. We'll see if that stands. This is from early October 2021.
It is flat-out child abuse. Take your children and tell them they have to attend school. Don't have a choice. And then some of them will tell them they don't want you to have a choice where they go to school. You have to send your children here to school.
Yes, that's important. Kids need to learn to read and write. Are you shitting me?
Then when they get there, what do they teach them?
Reading and writing?
Teach them a bunch of stuff about how to hate America.
What does he think is going on in classrooms? I mean, granted, it's been like 70 years since he's been in a classroom, probably. But that's not what's happening, okay? That's not going on in classrooms. Get a grip on reality.
Teach them a bunch of stuff about why they're racist. Teach them a bunch of stuff about transgenderism and homosexuality. I'm saying this now, and I've been saying it, and I don't care who likes it. Those issues have no place in a school.
Sure. You know what? I agree. Teachers should not be teaching about how to be gay or trans or whatever. Fine, okay? That's not happening. But if a kid is gay, what are you going to do? Ban him from going to school or something? People are gay sometimes. That's just how it works.
There's no reason anybody anywhere in America should be telling any child about transgenderism, homosexuality, any of that filth.
So he's saying that he believes teachers are teaching kids to be gay and trans. It's not just like, oh, the teacher has like a pride flag up or something. He thinks that they're being taught about this.
Genderism, homosexuality, any of that filth. And yes, I called it filth. And if you don't like it that I called it filth, come see me and I'll explain it to you.
I understand it. You're just a scumbag is all. I get that.
It's time for us to stop letting these children be abused at these schools. And it's not going to happen till the people of God stand up and demand different.
So he's a lieutenant governor and he's a pastor of a church, and obviously inextricably melds the two. Of course. He's also talked about Candace Owens, believe it or not. This is from 2020. Listen to this. This is recorded in a secret meeting.
This idiotic guy was on stage with Candace Owens a few days ago and asked her, what America are we going back to make America great again? The one where women couldn't vote or black people were swinging from trees?
This is an interesting point, okay? Think about this. The origin of the terms left and right, it comes from the French Revolution. So after the French helped the United States in our revolution against Britain in 1776 to like 1882 or something, France had a revolution after that, 1789. There's a difference between revolutions and dictatorships. In the French Revolution, there was a group of people to the left of the, like physically to the left of the king or whatever, who wanted to erase the old way and start new. Create like a democracy without a king, without a dictator, one that forgot all of the old stuff because it disgusted them. Those are the people who were physically to the left of the king. And physically to the right of the king were those that supported a monarchy and wanted to crack down and force control over these people. The left and the right have followed that same pattern throughout history. Revolutions hate the past so much that they want to erase it and sometimes even start with a brand new dating system, like year one. Dictatorships, or the right, usually glorify a fictional past, a mythical past that never existed, and want to get back to that past and claim that they are the only ones that can fix it and bring it back to that point. There's a constant struggle in politics in the world since day one between revolution and dictatorship. So somebody asks aptly, what mythical past do you want to get back to? You talking about going back to the 1950s when schools and neighborhoods were segregated, where people were drinking from black and white only water fountains? You want to go back to the 1920s? Hell, you want to go back to the 70s when women weren't allowed to own a house or a credit card or a bank? You want to go back to the 20s where women couldn't even vote? Or maybe the teens. I think they gained the right to vote in 1919 or something. You want to go back to then? Like where? Let's go back another 50 years. You want to go back to when slaves existed? Like where people were forcing slaves to work on their plantations? You want to go back even further, another 50 years, where the church controlled the government in some states? Where? Where do we go back to? There is no good spot back there because progress is inevitable in society. We will move forward and improve and change and grow as a country. We will. The direction that we go is up to you. So Mark Robinson, being to the right of the king, effectively, is saying, I want to go back to a mythical past.
Going back to Make America Great Again, the one where women couldn't vote or black people were swinging from trees.
Black people were swinging from trees. I guess that means like black people were lynched in public.
I would say to him if I was standing in front of him, I absolutely want to go back to the America where women couldn't vote. Do you know why?
Oh, dear God, tell me why.
Because in those days, we had people who fought for real social change, and they were called Republicans. And they are the reason why women can vote today.
Okay, interesting. So the Republicans that were fighting for women's right to vote, were they left-wing or right-wing? Were they conservative or liberal, do you think? Republicans love to play this game. Oh, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves and he was a Republican. Was he left-wing or right-wing? He was left-wing. There was a party switch. Let's drop the names Republican and Democrat, and let's just talk about left or right. You're saying you want to go back to a time when the left was fighting for social change? Hey, that's what we're doing now. This is the issue of our day, right here. This stuff. We want to improve the lives of the people around us, just like the suffragettes wanted to improve the lives of people in their day. It's the exact same thing. Oh yeah, and guess what? The suffragettes did not glorify a mythical past. They wanted revolution.
Those days that he talked about when black folks were swinging from trees, guess who it was out there fighting?
The left-wingers. Yeah, the left was fighting for people to not be lynched in public.
To bring that to an end, to bring Jim Crow to an end. It was Republicans.
Yeah, the left. Absolutely. Right. And he's on the right. He is the antithesis of what those people stood for.
So that's the America we want to bring back. We want to bring back the America where Republicans and principles and true ideas of freedom rule.
So he wants a system where the left is in control of the government then? So is he running as a Republican or a Democrat? Is he running left wing or right wing? I don't understand. No, I understand perfectly, actually. I think it's him that doesn't understand.
That's the America we want to bring back. That's why I'm a Republican. I'm a Republican because of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment to the
I'm a Republican because I'm left leaning and I want progressive change. What? Is he lying knowingly? Is he aware that Republicans 50, 60, 75 years ago were on the left? Or is he just like completely oblivious to history?
I'm a Republican because of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment to the Constitution and the 19th Amendment to the Constitution. I'm a Republican because whenever you look at true, honest to God, social change for the better.
It's been the left. Every single time, yes. The people on the left have been working at this for centuries. Yep.
At the top, leading the charge, is a Republican.
No, it's been a left-winger. For the past 50 years, since Nixon's Southern strategy, his strategy to bring in Dixiecrats, the Southern racist white Democrats, as they called themselves, the right-wing Ku Klux Klan people. Since Nixon's plan to bring those people in, Republicans have been on the right. And there's a lot of confusion during this transition from Republicans being on the left to Republicans being on the right. There's so much confusion, in fact, that you can see. Look at this map. Here, let me pull it up. And look at this. Look, this is the election map that Nixon had. Nixon appealed to Dixiecrats, Southern racist white Democrats in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, all those areas. And he won every state but Massachusetts and Washington, D.C. Do you know why that is? Because every other state, like Pennsylvania, New York, California, they were used to voting for the left-wing Republicans. But Nixon flipped the parties. And the people in the South, the Ku Klux Klan members, realized that. They said, we're voting Republican, because that's the right-wing candidacy now. So you get left-wing voters voting Republican and right-wing voters voting Republican because of Richard Nixon. And you end up with a map like that. We shouldn't even really be using the terms Republican and Democrat in these types of contexts. It should only ever be left or right. Anyway, does he know that he's completely full of shit, or is he oblivious to it? Tell me what you think about it in the comments. Next up, Qanonner Lara Logan used to be a respected journalist. She worked for CBS News from 2004 to 2008, but she built up deep credibility within the field of investigative journalism. And then she went down the QAnon rabbit hole. One might call her a Q-hole. Anyway, she went on a 3-minute nonsensical rant about the deep state and the cabal coming for her. It was actually very entertaining. We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. This is Lara Logan, was once considered a legitimate investigative journalist. She was with CBS. Was it CBS or I don't know. I don't remember who she was with, but really valuable, important, well-read, good journalist at one point in time, and now full-blown QAnonner. And it's so entertaining and bizarre to hear some of the things that come out of her mouth. So listen to what she had to say here. This clip, by the by, is from July 13th, 2024. Check this out.
Back a little bit further. Who got Jimmy Carter elected? You know, if you remember, he was elected because of the Iranian hostage crisis, right? And what...
I'm not going to accept that, but okay, go on.
Right? And what did they do? The CIA got their friends in Iran to make sure that those hostages were not released, and that was the number one issue on which he came to power. So when you start to unravel these relationships, what you find...
I do remember that there was an Iranian hostage crisis. And I do remember that the CIA overthrew Iran, the Iranian government, and installed a puppet dictatorship, the Shah of Iran. It was ugly. It was really, really ugly. Not good. Honestly, might have been the worst thing the CIA has ever done in its history, overthrowing Iran the way they did. But okay, what about it? Go on.
Start to unravel these relationships, what you find is that there are factions in every part of the world, which may explain why people like, for example, Adolf Hitler, before the Second World War, where did he go? He went all over the Islamic world, right? He was making...
Hitler went to the Islamic world? I've never heard any evidence for that. I'm not saying it's not true. I've just... Literally, the first time I'm hearing of it is from Lara Logan, and she should be distrusted. Literally every word out of her mouth.
World, right? He was making his deals. And so these relationships are really represented today in these global institutions. And, you know, it wasn't so long ago, maybe 20 years ago, that you would look at people, preppers, and, you know, who would say that the UN is trying to take over the world, and you would think, gosh, these...
You would say, who is you in this scenario? Who is we or they? Who says this? The UN is trying to take over the world? Like what?
These people in the mountains in America, they're kind of nuts.
Right.
Like, why do they think this? And what do you see today? You see the United Nations bringing in a charter on sexual rights for the child. What is...
Who brought in this charter? Sexual rights for children? What? Let's find out, shall we? Here are just a few examples of sexual rights for children that she's talking about here. The UN recommends that children aged 5 to 8 learn to recognize and reject bullying and violence. This is under comprehensive sexuality education. And that children aged 12 to 15 learn that sexual abuse, assault, and other forms of violence are human rights violations. The UN also recommends that adolescents aged 15 to 18 learn about consent in sexual relationships. That's super important. Oh my God, yes, I love it. The UN's UNFPA works with governments to implement sexuality education programs in schools and communities. I love it, yes. I am all for this sexual rights of children bill or whatever. They probably could have named it better, but yes. Services for adolescents. The UN recommends that adolescents have access to services that address their sexual and reproductive health needs, including education, counseling, and health promotion. These services should respect adolescents' privacy, confidentiality, informed consent, as well as their cultural values and religious beliefs. Yes. Oh my God, I am so for this. And here's number 3, raising awareness. The UN has observed World Day for the prevention and healing from sexual abuse to raise awareness of the issue and to promote the prevention and elimination of child sexual abuse and exploitation. The UN also calls for holding perpetrators accountable, ensuring access to justice for survivors, and promoting healing and dignity. Yes, 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 yes. I love it. I love everything about it. There isn't a single bad word in this entire breakdown. Absolutely. Now, what is she complaining about exactly?
I think, gosh, these people in the mountains in America, they're kind of nuts.
Right.
Like, why do they think this? And what do you see today? You see the United Nations bringing in a charter on sexual rights for the child.
Did you read them? Did you even skim them? Did you read the titles? The titles, at least. Anything. Of course she didn't. She doesn't give a shit. You know why? She's a propagandist. Through and through. It's all about propaganda with Lara Logan, sadly.
What does that tie into?
Yeah.
Well, that ties into cultural Marxism, right? Which they now try to tell you is a buzzword of the far, far, far evil right.
Yeah, it is, actually. And let me tell you why I say that. Cultural Marxism is the same as cultural Bolshevism or cultural communism. And here's the idea. Communism is the idea that we live in a commune and everybody is equal, and I'm giving you like a dumbed down parody that these people seem to believe is how communism is supposed to work. This isn't really how it works, but just bear with me. In communism, you live on a commune, or even if it's like a countrywide thing, everybody is given the exact same amount of money, no matter what they do. Certain people are chosen to go to school, certain others are not. Certain people are farmers, certain others aren't. And all of the money is spread across everybody so they can live a happy life and there's no poor class, basically. It's not how it works, not how it was outlined, but okay. Cultural communism is the idea that people want equality over opportunity, right? So if you have somebody who is objectively better at lifting weights than somebody else, say they've been lifting weights for 10 years and they weigh 160 pounds and it's all muscle, versus the guy over here has been lifting for 2 weeks and he weighs 130 pounds. Now, equality of outcome in their mind is where the 130-pound guy gets a participation trophy at least. And in an ideal world, he will be given like a handicap so that he can more easily match the guy who worked to be where he is. In reality, that's not how it works. That's not how society works. That's not how it's ever worked. Nobody is in favor of that. No one will ever be in favor of that. But you know who popularized that idea? You're going to laugh when I say it. Hitler popularized cultural Bolshevism. The Bolshevist party was what eventually became the Communist Party. So when you hear Bolshevik, it means communist. And Hitler fearmongered non-stop about cultural Bolsheviks invading and taking control of everything across the world. The Bolsheviks are slipping their agenda into every part of our blah, 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 blah. Cultural communism, cultural Marxism, cultural Bolshevism, it's all from Hitler. And I can prove that if need be. This is a book written by Richard J. Evans titled The Coming of the Third Reich, The History of the Third Reich. Let me just read a little excerpt from it so you have an idea of what we're dealing with here, okay? This is under a chapter titled Culture Wars. Culture wars were a big part of Nazi Germany. That is one of their methods of getting people whipped into a blood frenzy the way that they did. The emergence of the sensationalist popular press was only one among many new and, for some people, disquieting developments on the media and cultural scene in the 1920s and 30s. Experimental literature, the concrete poetry of the Dadaists, the modernist novels of Alfred Doblin, the social critical plays of Belrow Brecht, the biting polemical journalism of Kurt Tucholsky and Karl von Ossetsky, all divided readers between a minority who rose to the challenge of the new and the majority who regarded such work as cultural Bolshevism, cultural Bolshevism, cultural Marxism. Alongside the vibrant radical literacy culture of Berlin, there was another literary word appealing to the conservative nationalist part of the middle classes, rooted in nostalgia for the lost Bismarckian past and prophesying its return with the longed-for collapse of the Weimar Republic. Just like 4 pages later, we have another little section on cultural Bolshevism, okay? The conservative composer Hans Pfitzner, I'm butchering names, I apologize, struck a chord when he denounced such tendencies as symptoms of national degeneracy and ascribed them to Jewish influences and cultural Bolshevism, cultural Marxism, cultural communism. The German musical tradition 300 had been protected from such threats, which were made more acute by the Prussian government, but Prussia was one of the German states at the time, by the Prussian government's appointment in 1925 of the Austrian Jewish atonalist Arnold Schoenberg to teach composition at the State Music Academy in Berlin. Cultural Marxism is like taking that economic system of communism, where to each their need and from each their ability, or whatever the hell the saying is, and applying that to social issues like Here's an example of cultural Marxism, quote unquote, affirmative action. Perfect example. If people have everything else equal, same exact resume, same exact amount of experience, same exact education, everything's the same, then you tend to favor the candidate that would correct a disproportionality in your company, right? So 15% of the United States is made up of black people, and there are only 8% black people employed here at your company, of like Procter & Gamble, for example. So all other things being equal, you will lean toward making things more fair. That's cultural Marxism in the minds of Americans today. And that is the exact verbiage, the same term that Hitler used to attack affirmative action like programs in Germany. Anytime you listen to Lara Logan attack cultural Marxism, realize that it's right from the lips of Hitler. Like, she is quoting Hitler when she says this.
Well, that ties into cultural Marxism, right? Which they now try to tell you is a buzzword of the far, far, far evil right. Give me a break, okay? We don't care about you and your stupid propaganda and your labels and everything else. Cultural Marxism was imported to this country by the Franklin Institute shortly before the Second World War, because essentially what had happened is the Bolsheviks realized that because...
Did you catch me? Bolsheviks? All of these words were used by Hitler, like out of his mouth, to whip people into a blood frenzy. She is doing exactly what Hitler did to get people upset over what was happening in society or whatever.
Shortly before the Second World War, because essentially what had happened is the Bolsheviks realized that because of the American dream, the American worker, the proletariat in this country was never going to be a reliable partner for Marxists. So what did they do? They switched. They shifted their emphasis to cultural Marxism. And these are, now, if you look at the
Again, cultural Marxism, cultural Bolshevism, same thing.
Institute, who partnered, by the way, with Columbia University. What is Columbia University doing and pushing today? It ain't journalism, that's for sure, right? And so when you...
Now, what's wrong with Columbia University? I live like, I don't know, a few blocks away from Columbia. What's wrong with Columbia? I don't understand. What's your hang up with them? What are they famous for that she doesn't like? Protesting in favor of human rights? Wow, the gall! Can you imagine somebody expressing their free speech on a college campus? Wow. That's messed up, man.
Start to look at these relationships. You can find all of this. It's historical record. Nobody has to take my word for it. But this is the...
And we will not, madam.
But this is the origins of all those things. Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals and the sort of the LSD, free hippie, free love generation, the degradation and breakdown of American traditions and American society. So you find those origins are rooted in a global organization. And if you take a step further back...
Okay, I'm sorry. Those things are rooted in a globalist organization. What is again?
Traditions in American society. So you find those origins are rooted in
the things that fight against traditional values and families and whatever are rooted in a globalist organization, a cabal, if you will, that is set out to destroy the earth? What does she think they're doing?
In a global organization. And if you take a step further back, what else do you find? Well, way back in the early 1900s, Lenin sent his emissaries all over the world to identify fishes in foreign societies. So
a political figure sends other political figures around to find holes in enemy cultural constructs or whatever. Really? First time hearing of it.
In America, they identified race, which is why you will see Marxism so closely associated with the civil rights movement, right?
Do I find Marxism associated with the civil rights movement? I have not noticed that, actually. You know what I have noticed? Lara Logan, Donald Trump, and others like them. Steve Bannon. God, I have a whole list. Hank Kunneman, Kenneth Copeland. Boy, I'm going now. Jesse Waters, Laura Ingraham. Non-stop, constantly talk about Marxism and leftism and Marxism. That's like all they have on their brains. They are trying to attach those two things. I'm not a Marxist, okay? I don't associate myself or anybody I know with Marxism or communism or socialism or whatever. I'm a capitalist. Literally every human being that I know is a capitalist. You can have different degrees of capitalist. Some people want to bake unions right into a company that's above 10 employees or something. That's me. I would like to bake unions into things, but that's not socialism. Does she even know what that is? She lives in an alternate reality. She just went on for literally 2.5, almost 3 minutes about cultural Marxism. She literally just repeated Hitler, nearly verbatim, for 3 minutes. Used to be a reporter of some credibility. Used to be somebody important and valuable to society. Is now a QAnonner. Let me lay down some other clips from her, since we're talking about her in the first place. This one is from 2023, late November, and she's talking to Charlie Kirk. And it just give it a listen.
Because when one police officer sees another police officer under attack, what's going to happen? He's going to escalate, even though their job is to de-escalate. And on the same side, on the other side where you have protesters, when you see women being punched in the face or hit in the face.
What fictitious scenario is she drawing up right now, and why?
When you are standing around innocently, you have no idea what is happening way up ahead. You have no idea that there are paid provocateurs in the crowd who are picking a fight with police.
Who? In what scenario? What are you talking about?
And out of nowhere, you're being hit with flashbangs and all kinds of munitions that cause real damage. And these are called less than lethal munitions. And they're called that for a reason. They're not called non-lethal, Charlie.
Well, that's because you can shoot a rubber bullet through somebody's eye and it will kill them. But yeah, if you shoot a rubber bullet at somebody, it's probably not going to kill them generally. What point is she getting to here?
Called non-lethal, Charlie, because they become lethal when used in certain circumstances. So when you look at that West Tunnel where so much of the violence happened.
She's talking about January 6th right now, by the way.
When those munitions are used in that environment, which is a confined space where nobody can go, the police are pushing from one side, and there were people whose job was to push from the other side to capture people in between.
Wait a second now. So she's telling us the people at the Capitol on January 6th were actually paid provocateurs, Antifa members who are presumably being paid by George Soros, right, or something, to show up and start a riot and then blame it on the right. Right, absolutely. And that totally worked, right? Isn't Donald Trump, like, pushing to pardon these people now, even though he could have done that, like, when he was still in office, but chose not to?
What they're doing is they're hoping that people get injured, and they're hoping that people get killed, because that feeds the narrative. So an information warfare operation has many different compartments.
What narrative? What people? What the hell is she going on about?
Feeds the narrative. So an information warfare operation has many different compartments, but most importantly...
Wow, it cut off there, really? Did I not get the rest of the clip? I apologize for that, guys. She's about to tell us the most important part of the plan. Rest assured, the entire thing was garbage. All of it, from beginning to end. Oh yeah, you know what, though? I do love this freeze frame. Nothing better. Blaming Antifa for January 6th. Good job. Good job. Hilariously, this clip got her kicked off of Newsmax. Yeah, she's been kicked off of, like, a bunch of different, like, news outlets, if you can call them that. I think Fox News, One America News Network, and now Newsmax, they've all kicked her off. And she is, of course, pretending to be a victim. She was mistreated. Blah, 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 blah. You know how it goes. This is the video that did it for Newsmax.
God believes that in sovereignty and national identity and the sanctity of family and all the things that we've lived with from the beginning of time. And he knows that the open border is Satan's way of taking control of the world through all of these people who are his stooges and his servants.
The open border is Satan's way of taking control of the United States because immigrants are agents of Satan. Okay, go on.
And they may think that they're going to become gods. That's what they tell us. Yuval Noah Harari and all the rest of them at the World Economic Forum.
Who the hell says they're going to be gods? What? The World Economic Forum is this organization, like an international organization, that invites really, really filthy rich people every year. Like the richest people in the world, you know, from China, from Europe, from America, Brazil, everywhere. And the richest people show up, and the World Economic Forum does statistical analysis to determine where a certain amount of money would be best spent. Say you get like a $50 million donation from all of the richest people on planet Earth. What can we do with that $50 million to improve conditions of humanity worldwide? And one of their initiatives was to get everybody in the Congo, or I don't remember which, some African country, get them all inoculated from polio, because there's a polio outbreak there. So Bill Gates donated like a ton of money to get this African country inoculated from polio, and it was successful. Anyway, that's what the World Economic Forum does. They just draw up plans for what they can do with this money to improve the world. And every year they hold a summit to discuss their goals for the following year and their ideals. And they give out like awards. You helped humanity the most this year, or whatever other thing. Trump's been invited. Elon Musk was invited. I think he attended. Bill Gates and George Soros and a whole bunch of other people. That's the WEF, right? Well, when COVID hit, the World Economic Forum, led by Klaus Schwab, said, this is a delicate moment in history where we have an opportunity to reset the world economies to be more beneficial to the working class and the poor than to the ultra rich. And he wrote a book about it. It's not a long book, and it doesn't really have any plans. He was just outlining why this is a good moment in human history to reset economies and how we might go about doing some of that. And just like that, weirdly, a plan that threatens the well-being and the status of people as filthy rich, a plan that challenges that comes out, and overnight, practically, a conspiracy theory arises from the ashes and spreads like wildfire all over everything. All you hear about is a great reset on QAnon boards and pro-Trump boards and 4chan and 8chan and every other chan from here to Texas. It's all the Great Reset. Can they articulate what that is? 90% of the time, the answer is no. The people complaining about it have no idea. They just think it's like the ultra-rich's method of controlling the world or whatever nonsense. So anyway, the WEF, anytime you hear any attacks on the WEF, the World Economic Forum, or Davos, where they meet, it's Great Reset conspiracy stuff. And that's what she's laying down for us right now.
People who are his stooges and his servants, and they may think that they're going to become gods. That's what they tell us. Yuval Noah Harari and all the rest of them at the World Economic Forum.
There you go.
You know, the ones who want us eating insects, cockroaches, and that while they dine on the blood of children.
Again, that did not happen. There was a report released that said that there's going to come a time, if we don't change things, where protein is extremely scarce on the planet because of climate change. You're going to have trouble growing beans and like keeping cows alive and stuff. And our whole distribution network and everything is all going to have to change from the ground up. And in that interim period, we might not have a choice but to like work bugs in as part of our protein diet, or we will all die. That's what that report was about. I don't even think that came from the WEF. That was just like a report by scientists. If you want to avoid that, there's a quick and easy way to do it. Renewable energy. But okay. Complain about the WEF. I guess that does a lot of good for everybody. Right. Anyway, like these people all live in a fantasy land.
To want us eating insects, cockroaches, and that while they dine on the blood of children. Yeah. Those are the people, right? They're not. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. And she slipped the dine on the blood of children bit in there, too. Yeah, that's an old accusation against the Jewish community. The claim that they mix children into matzo balls or matzo ball soup or whatever it is. It's called blood libel, and it's been around since the dawn of time, practically. It's because Jews have historically been separate from other cultures and societies. They've lived separately. They have different sets of moral values and practices, certain ways of treating the dead, for example. And it's been weird, alien, odd, questionable to other groups throughout history. So these groups, looking at this minority that's kind of weird to them, of course, come up with conspiracy theories. They're eating children over there. And now they make that same claim about atheists. It's just absurd.
The rest of them at the World Economic Forum, you know, the ones who want us eating insects, cockroaches, and that while they dine on the blood of children. Yeah. Those are the people, right? They're not going to win. They're not going to win.
Yeah, that's the interview that got her banned. Because she spread all kinds of nonsensical trash. I love everything about it. This woman needs help, though, seriously. I can't even believe that she somehow managed to get as high as she did in, I think it was CBS, to gain so much legitimacy as she did. My God, dude, that's crazy. Yeah, check this one out. I got one more.
We live in a nation of potential collaborators.
Dude on the left, Stu Peters, full-blown Nazi, Hitler-loving Nazi, says Hitler did heroic acts. And on the right is a QAnonner. And they say we live in a country of potential collaborators.
And if we don't reduce the price of standing up, if we don't make it less costly and encourage more people to stand, that is what lies ahead for all of us. When they come and say, who were the ones who voted for Trump? Who were the ones with Trump signs in their front porch?
Is somebody doing that? Is a member of the government writing a database of anybody who supported Donald Trump so they can prosecute them criminally for it? Like what?
Who were the Proud Boys? Who were the Oath Keepers? When they come to, who wouldn't comply?
Who were the journalists?
Who are the journalists? Who didn't get a vaccine?
Nobody cares if you got a vaccine. You don't have a right to be around my kid at school, of course. But if you don't want a vaccine, go off and live your life without one. Fine. Honestly, I'm not sure if I've been vaccinated because my mom was one of those crunchy mommy, you know, health food. I even had like a homeopathic doctor, the whole 9 yards when I was little. Anyway, God, it's crazy. I had a chiropractor, guys. Those things are fake as f***. A chiropractor. They don't know what they're doing. They did not go to med school, okay? Don't go to a chiropractor. Anyway, yeah, crunchy mommy stuff is the point.
Who are the journalists?
Who are the journalists? Who didn't get a vaccine? When they come for us, our neighbors will be raising their hands to lead the killing squads to our doors.
So what'd she say? So be quiet? She thinks they're going to be killing squads for not getting vaccinated. Really? This is insane. Did you go to public school? Yes, I did. Elementary school, yeah. And in West Virginia, you know what? Come to think of it, it is a legal requirement to be vaccinated in public school for West Virginia. So I guess I have been vaccinated. Not every public school, though. Or not every state, I mean. There are some states out there that do not legally require vaccines. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. This is disappointing, man. For society's sake, this is disappointing. Next up, Steve Deace is a Republican political commentator on Glenn Beck's network, The Blaze. He said some very bizarre things about the left. Apparently, the dude thinks drag queens are doing unspeakable things to children while reading a book to them. It's so ridiculous, it's crossed over to hilarious. Well, he was just chosen to rewrite the Oklahoma social studies curriculum. Along with the leader of Project 2025, the propagandist David Barton, and many other characters of ill repute. Let's talk about how they got there, what plausible and reasonable effect they'll have on the curriculum, and what to do next. We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. This is Steve Deace. If you're unfamiliar, he's a far-right extremist. And Kevin Walters, superintendent of Oklahoma, just decided to appoint this guy to rewrite the Oklahoma school curriculum for social studies. So I want to give you an idea of who he is. He's crossed the line from ridiculous to hilarious 16 billion times. So let me show you an example of that. This clip is from late September 2022. Give this a listen.
Can you watch a program without, literally, live sporting event, news show, whether we're covering them, talking about them, promoting them? Can you listen to a podcast that doesn't include some reference to drag queens today?
Yes. Literally nothing that I ever listened to, except for this dude's podcast, talked about drag queens. Literally nothing.
Is it possible? Anywhere. Pro or con?
That, like, are the things that he's watching that full of people being gay or trans or bi or drag queens or whatever? Can he really not escape that world? How is he so immersed in that? I am about as pro-gay as it gets without actually being gay myself. And I don't even get, like, a news feed that's so full of this stuff. Jesus Christ.
I mean, they're as mainstream as it gets. Even when RuPaul is saying, well, we're the ones that come in and groom the kids.
Yeah, I don't know who RuPaul is. I know nothing about RuPaul. I'm 100% sure that that was satirical, though. If it was even said. You know, let me just find out. Okay, I look around for, like, RuPaul saying that, and I don't see anything about it. I honestly would not put it past this guy to just, like, make some shit up. That is kind of his style. So until I get some evidence that that was actually said, not ironically, I'm just like, I'm going to not believe him. Simple as that. For the record, drag queen performances are just that. They're performances. It's fun. 99% of the time, they're not even trans. Just people dressing up like a show. Like they're putting on a show, like a circus or something. That's it. And yeah, they read to kids sometimes. If the kid's parents agree to bring the kid to the event, they're not cramming it down people's throats or anything. They're just holding events. If you want to go, you can go. If you don't, you don't. And it's getting kids engaged in reading books and stuff. It's a good way all the way around, okay? Listen to this one TikToker drag queen on the subject.
Can you believe how many people in our country are pushing legislation to restrict drag queen performances? Drag queens
freedom
have existed for so long, like ever since sparkly things were invented.
Yeah, you know what they say about the Greeks? They say, it's a little bit off subject, but they say the Greeks invented the orgy and the Romans brought women into the equation.
And now, after all these years, we're suddenly a danger to the children? They say we're grooming them. Really? You know what us drag performers really want for your kids? We want them to know they don't have to grow up and be bigoted, hateful a-holes like those people. No. That's the grooming they're worried about, making the kids open-minded and accepting of others. and themselves. They clearly don't want that. Now, how do we get everyone to understand we're all just people? We're all humans trying to have a good life here. So stop making it so damn hard.
Unfortunately, there is no way to make that point. There is no way to communicate that to people like Steve Deace here, who is so afraid of drag queens or of anybody that's not like him that he just makes things up. He just lies about people in an effort to turn others against them.
The kids. That's what he means. We're the ones that come in and groom the kids. Pedo groomers should be executed, by the way. After a fair trial, of course.
Oh, of course. He's not unreasonable, right? He's just advocating for like the death of his enemies casually. That not a big deal, right? But he wants it to be like through a court system, so A-okay with everybody else, I guess. Listen to this clip from him.
This isn't real to them. Now, one day they will find out that hell is. This is the stuff of Nero. And if we're going to sit here and talk spiritual implications and manifestations.
Nero, if you don't know, was the emperor in Rome that was in control when the Bible was being written, roughly. So 200 years after Jesus died, give or take. And he terribly persecuted the Christians. I'm not sure how that ties in to what he's saying here.
They will find out that hell is. This is the stuff of Nero. And if we're going to sit here and talk spiritual implications and manifestations about when the spirit of the age manifests itself on that team, you obviously need to know if you come to this show. I'm sure as hell going to do it when it happens on the other one.
Dude, I am so lost. Did he just say anything of substance at all?
This is the stuff of Nero. Now, Nero in our system of government could not put Christians on stakes, light them on fire to illuminate his orgies. He doesn't have the power to manifest something like that. But here's what Nero will do. Lawfare from the federal government of the United States of America.
Nero can do lawfare from the U.S.?
Will now be declared upon the Church of Jesus Christ.
Okay, look, taking him seriously at face value here, I would be disturbed by the idea that the United States government was forcing Christian pastors or churches or whatever to say or do certain things. I don't want that. However, I don't believe that anybody should be discriminated against for any reason at all, ever. And you know what? That includes political affiliation. I don't think a Trump supporter should be kicked out of a restaurant simply because they're a Trump supporter. If they're making an obnoxious asshole of themselves, that's reason enough to kick them out. If they refuse to wear a shirt when they walk in because they have a huge MAGA thing tattooed across the chest and Donald Trump's portrait or something, and they want to show that off, yeah, they can be kicked out for that because it's not political. It's obnoxious. That's all. It's obnoxious. I don't think anyone should be discriminated against for any reason. And that includes Christian organizations. I don't give a what excuse you give for persecuting people. There's no valid excuse for that. But okay, go on.
Lawfare from the federal government of the United States of America will now be declared upon the Church of Jesus Christ.
That is not happening. Big long silence. Let that sink in, I guess.
The United States government is about to declare itself at war with the kingdom of God, openly.
The U.S. is going to openly declare war with Christianity. Okay, wow, that's a big claim. So how long ago did this come out, I wonder? Let's see, I have the number here. Would you look at that? It turns out it was all the way back in 2022. Mid-November 2022. Huh. And here we are. Let's see. Years later. Years. He is so full of everything out of his mouth. And it gets crazier. You think that's crazy?
On a federal level. No longer just a few blue states like Oregon that want to go after Sweet Cakes by Melissa, or Washington that want to go after Baronel Stutzman.
Like, he's literally naming cases where Christians wanted to persecute others for intrinsic qualities about themselves. And the U.S. government said, no, you're not allowed to persecute people simply because they are black, or they are gay, or they're atheist, or they're whatever. Protected classes, women. You can't do that. He's complaining about it. He is complaining that he's watching a Christian woman punch somebody in the face, and the government stops her from punching the person in the face and says, you're violating rights. She has a right to punch her in the face. No, she doesn't. You have a right to live your life. I have a right to live my life. And if you want to run a business that's open to the public, you have to serve the public. Everybody. You can't discriminate based on gender or sexuality or race or religion or ethnicity or whatever. He wants to do that stuff, though, is the problem. He wants to discriminate. This is his attempt to erode people's rights by discriminating against others. Honestly, there's an exception in the law carved out for Christian organizations too. Like, for example, the Ark Encounter by Ken Ham in Kentucky, big museum that looks like an ark or whatever, Noah's Ark, and it has like an animatronic zoo in it and everything else. You'd think they'd be able to put a real zoo in and they'd keep all the same animals that Noah had, but that's neither here nor there. Damn thing can't even float in case of a flood. Either way, they are legally allowed to persecute or to refuse to hire non-Christian extremists. If a Buddhist applies or an atheist, they can deny their application and say, I don't care. I don't want you involved in this project. I don't care what level of service you're working in or what. I don't care. Like what kind of a tax designation or whatever. You shouldn't be allowed to discriminate, plain and simple, in my opinion. Anyway, keep listening here because it gets even weirder than this.
Melissa or Washington that want to go after Baronel Stutzman, or a few crazies in Denver, Colorado, and their rainbow jihad that want to go after poor Jack. No, on a systemic level.
Rainbow jihad. Okay. And what terrorist attacks are gay people engaging in?
The United States of America is going to declare war on the church with this legislation. That's its intent.
Talk about fear-mongering, dude. That is wild. Listen to this one. This is absolutely nuts.
The Democratic Party is not a political party. It is one in name only. It is a demonic construct. Call it what it is.
Would you be willing to accept the idea that maybe the Republican Party is a religious construct? Could you accept that if this is what he believes? He'd almost certainly say yes, right?
You're voting for a demonic construct. You're not compassionate. You're not tolerant.
Yeah, except Democrats are way more compassionate and tolerant than Republicans. What are you talking about?
You're not kind. You're anything but.
Well, that's just wrong. You're just wrong. They are.
You're voting for dudes teabagging their face on children at public libraries and public.
I'm sorry, they're what? Dudes are teabagging what?
Teabagging their face on children at public libraries and public schools. You're voting for that. That's what.
What? Oh my God, the imagery there, the vivid image that he just forced upon me is too much. That's freaking funny. The dude believes people are being teabagged at local libraries. Kids! He thinks drag queens are teabagging kids at local libraries. He took that step, man. No one else would take that step, but he did it. He was the first. Like Neil Armstrong. I'll take that first step into teabag territory. Wow, man. You know, I've never thought about that. I didn't even know what that was until, maybe high school. Some gamers were talking about it, you know, playing Xbox, and they were, like, doing the teabag thing or whatever. I had never heard of that. I had never done that. I'd never seen it done. I'd never anything. And this dude just busts it out, like, in the context of, like, children. Like, what is wrong with you that you would say that? That is insane and hilarious. You know what?
Now you're an asshole. You got that? You're an asshole, is what you are. No, he's an asshole.
Thank you, Mike Lindell, for summing that up succinctly. I appreciate it. He's absolutely correct.
For that. That's what you're for. You're for it.
You're for that, people, okay? You want that to happen to kids.
If you are a part of this, if you vote for this, you are aiding and abetting a demonic construct, a satanically influenced entity.
That likes teabag kids.
And a death cult.
Yeah, that death cult in there. I think teabagging kids is probably bad enough. I think he could have just stopped there. That is so ridiculous, dude. It's so ridiculous. It's hilarious now. What an absolutely absurd thing to say. Was that off the cuff, or did he just, like, come up with that and write it on a napkin, stick it in his pocket, and say, you know what, this is a good line I'm going to use later? Did he think about it a bunch? Was he trying to find a way to work this into conversation? This is wild, man. This is one of my favorite clips. You know, this is probably my favorite clip next to one other. There's one clip that's even better than that one. And I show it all the time. You guys are going to have to sit through it one more time. Yeah, my favorite clip of all time, I think, so far. I could be talked into a different one. This is Dusty Devers on the left, state senator, talking about COVID.
When we saw churches closing for long periods, we saw people, with this love your neighbor propaganda.
Love your neighbor propaganda. Literally words out of Jesus' mouth. Love your neighbor propaganda. That is wild, dude. Okay, there's a point behind all of this, by the way, about Steve Deace that I want to get to in a second. Just bear with me here. One more clip from the guy.
We all, I think, understand. And if you don't worry. I'm going to keep leaning on you until you get there.
Okay.
We all, I think, by now understand the old model of going to a happy-go-lucky church, watching Fox News all week long in between, and then being the silent majority and voting for the red wave to save us is a relic of a bygone era.
Do you think maybe it's because the moral majority never sided with you? These people want to radicalize as many as they possibly can because they don't have the numbers and they know it. Steve Deace knows that only like 27% or something of registered voters are Republican. He knows that they have to radicalize as many people as they can, move them as far right as possible, demonize Democrats to any degree, no matter what it takes. Lie, cheat, manipulate, steal, whatever, to get their goals accomplished. Gerrymander, twist things around, and then finally manage to barely skate into power and everything up in the process. Once they get that power, they ruin everything. You know why I say that? I'm not just like pulling that out of my... Let me show you a graph. This is Yahoo Finance, but this graph is accurate. Normally, I wouldn't trust them as a source generally, but this is actually correct. Annualized U.S. job growth by presidency. Ronald Reagan had job growth through the wazoo, and that was because he instituted trickle-down economics. Trickle-down economics is good for short-term stimulative effects. It works really well for about a year. And then everything falls through the floor, which is what we saw with George H.W. Bush. Fell through the floor. Bill Clinton had fantastic job growth. Great job growth. You could say dot-com bubble. Okay, he got to, kind of ride that wave. George W. Bush had no excuses. He had the lowest jobs report out of the previous 4 presidents or something. 0.3% increase. Okay? Barack Obama, 1% increase. That's pretty good. Donald Trump, negative 0.5% decrease. Biden had a really big explosion of job growth too. it's not really fair to compare Trump's and Biden's job reports, though, because of COVID. So I generally try not to do that. But there are a lot of other metrics that we can use. Let's just exclude Trump and Biden here. This'll work, I suppose. This is from Bloomberg, but the source is actually from... Are you serious? You got to be joking. Are they really not going to let me... I want to throw something so hard when I can't access a news website because of paywalls. What is wrong with society that trustworthy news is behind a paywall? There's something seriously f***ed up about it. All right, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going all the way. I'm creating a virtual card if I can. Let's see. Can I create a virtual card here? I just bought this stupid article because it forced me to buy this stupid article. God. Anyway, thank you, Bloomberg, for nothing. But let's take a look here. This is a good example. Growth under the past 12 presidents. Annualized real economic growth from first quarter in office. Are you serious? What's it going to do now? Try to cram ads down my throat? Leave me alone, please. All right. Annualized real economic growth from first quarter in office to last. Now, there was a period of time where the political parties switched, and it got really, really polarized. So in the 1930s, Democrats are generally known to be the party of the Ku Klux Klan. But there were some Democrats that were trustworthy, good, progressive, valuable to society, honest people. Like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, for example. He was a Democrat. And there were some conservatives that were good, honest people, like Eisenhower. He was a general in World War II, I believe, went on to be president. Presidents don't normally, or generals don't usually make good presidents, but he happened to make a good president. Anyway, tax rate under him was like 70-something%, I believe. Eisenhower was a conservative, and he was a good one. But during the 1970s, during Richard Nixon's whole bit, there's a party switch where Democrats went from being the conservative party, the one that wanted to conserve money and act more conservatively socially and all that stuff. It went from the Democrats to the Republicans. And you can even see the results of that in political maps. There was a lot of confusion at the time because Richard Nixon was running the Southern Strategy, is what it was called, where he was trying to appeal to Dixiecrats, old racist Democrats from the South. And basically telling them, hey, I feel just like you do. I'm just as racist as you, but I'm running as a Republican. Please vote for me as a Republican. So they did. And the Republicans, who were the left-leaning people generally in society, didn't realize exactly what was happening because a lot of that conversation happened through dog whistles. And they thought Nixon was just like the left-leaning candidate. For the most part, maybe some right-leaning tendencies. And that led to the 1972 election where the only state to vote against Richard Nixon, against Republicans, was Massachusetts. And D.C. possibly. So the point is that, like, the parties made a switch in 1972, basically. And everybody was super confused. And then it got more and more and more polarized at the time. So it's hard to know based on this graph roughly where these people sat politically. It was a little bit different before like 1972. Eisenhower, I believe, is in the 50s. This is annualized real economic growth from first quarter in office to last. 2.5% annualized growth under Eisenhower. John F. Kennedy had 5.5% annualized growth. Lyndon B. Johnson, who took over after Kennedy died, 5.1%. Nixon had 2.5%, significantly lower than his predecessors. Kennedy and Johnson were both left-leaning people. Johnson pushed through the IRS tax code that made it so that people could not endorse political candidates for office or campaigns if they wanted to keep their tax-exempt status. He also pushed the Civil Rights Act heavily. That's left-leaning stuff. And he had a really good report here. Ford was right-leaning, but he was just kind of a filler. He filled in after Nixon resigned. Carter was also a little bit of a filler, but he was honest. Sold his peanut farm so there would be no conflict of interest when he became president, and it was only for 4 years. Contrast that to Donald Trump, right? Ronald Reagan, 3.5% growth annually. That growth was the result of trickle-down economics having short-term gains, but devastating long-term effects. Trickle-down economics destroys an economy long-term. Bush 41 was in for one term, and he had 1.7% annual growth. He had the lowest annual growth on here, aside from his son, who got 2 points lower, or 2 percentage decimal points lower, or whatever. Holy shit. Clinton got 4%. That's really good. Can also thank the dot-com bubble. But by and large, Republicans wreck the economy, and Democrats come in and fix it. And then it's wrecked all over again. Like, Ronald Reagan got short-term gains from trickle-down economics. Wrecked the economy for George H.W. Bush. Clinton comes in, corrects the ship, makes things operate a little more smoothly. Bush comes in, wrecks it all over again. Pushes through more trickle-down economics nonsense. Obama rights the ship, fixes it all. Trump, his policies were going to wreck the economy in the exact same way that Bush's would. Worse. Much, much worse. But COVID came along, and that kind of skewed our results, so I don't even count Trump's presidency, really, in this kind of equation. Biden has corrected the economy that Trump f***ed up, though, for sure. Anyway, the point is that Democrats, far and away, are more valuable, useful, intelligent candidates and presidents. They govern way better on every metric than Republicans do, and they have for 50-something years. Simple as that. Okay, now let me tell you why Steve Deace is important in the first place right now, and we'll talk a little bit more about him. On screen here, we have a guy named Ryan Walters. He's the superintendent of Oklahoma, okay? This is a position that didn't even exist, that doesn't exist in any other state or context or whatever. They created this position for the guy, and he makes a lot of decisions for Oklahoma schools, and they're the wrong decisions. He's trying to blend Christianity and secular education together. He wants to make schools Christian schools. All public schools should be Christian schools. That's his goal. So he announced recently, but we got to win on this. I don't want you to feel discouraged by this. I'm not sure which thing it was that he did. He's done a few things now. He's tried to replace school counselors with pastors. He made it so that kids are allowed to attend church services all day, every day, instead of public school, and get credit for it. So they can literally go to church morning and noon, and then come home at night as though it's school, and do that all through the 12th grade. That was brought up to the Oklahoma Supreme Court and shot down. They rejected it. So we got a win on that. We get a lot of wins from this guy, but he's throwing it at the wall to see what sticks right now is the thing. So we got to talk about this stuff. Even though we're getting win after win after win, it's important we address what's happening. Anyway, the very next psychotic thing that this guy did was try to force Bibles to be in every classroom and to force teachers to teach from the Bibles in every classroom. He also tried to replace school counselors with chaplains. Again, all of this stuff is being adjudicated, and I don't think any of it's actually in practice yet. Certainly should never be in practice. But now what he's doing is he's announced an overhaul of Oklahoma's social studies standards, and Democrats push back, according to KSWO.com. It's their local channel. This is on July 9th. After Oklahoma State Superintendent Ryan Walters announced his plan to overhaul the state's social studies standards within public education, Democrats within Oklahoma legislature are pushing back. Rightfully so. That's illegal. That is unconstitutional on a federal level. The new approach to social studies standards will ensure the social studies standards are chronologically sound, reinforced, and reiterated through a student's primary and secondary education, will empower schools to teach from primary sources, and will inspire in students the love of country and a proper understanding of the American founding, the OSDE statement read. His argument is that literally every document that exists, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the everything, is all based on the Bible. That's false. Literally none of it was based on the Bible. None of them. Not one document from the founders was based on the Bible. You know what? If you find a quote with a Bible verse in it from one of our founding documents, as an atheist, I'd be perfectly okay with you going to a primary source on that. Go to the Bible, read the verse, so you understand what it says, move on. That's not what he wants to do. He wants to teach from the Bible, okay? And he's decided to put together a task force of people who's going to help him rewrite the curriculum for social studies in all Oklahoma schools. Who's going to be on that task force, I hear you asking? None other than Steve Deace, in fact. This guy here.
Yeah, I want to see him take his tie off, Matthew, and hang some Antifa members with it. That's what I
talking about Donald Trump.
want to say. I want to see him take the tie off. I want to see Antifa members hanging from gallows in Trump ties. That's what I would like to see. Yeah.
That's psychotic. This guy is psychotic. And what's more, why would he be in the equation to help write a curriculum? What expertise does he have in curriculum writing, in early childhood development or education, or even social studies? Literally any? No, he doesn't have any experience with this, or knowledge, or education, or whatever. He's just one of the complete nutcases involved in this, okay? Again, this is going to be shot down. I don't want you guys to feel too down about this. It's not going to stick. It's just not. I just want you to see, like, the scumbag that Ryan Walters is trying to pull right now. So here's a short list of some of the others that are involved in this process. Dr. Kevin Roberts. You remember Dr. Kevin Roberts? He's the owner or the CEO or president or whatever of the Heritage Foundation, the creator of Project 2025. He's also the guy that famously said, this revolution that we're running right now will remain bloodless as long as the left allows it to stay bloodless. I.e., we're going to accomplish our goals whether you like it or not. And if you want to bring violence into the equation, we're more than happy to meet you with violence.
The reason that so many anchors on MSNBC, for example, are losing their minds daily is because our side is winning. And so I come full circle in this response and just want to encourage you with some substance that we are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
It will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be. That guy is rewriting curriculums for Oklahoma students. Everett Piper, I don't know her. Everett Piper served as president of Oklahoma Wesleyan University from 2002 to 2019. Piper's the author of Not a Daycare, The Devastating Consequences of Abandoning Truth, and contributes columns to the Washington Times. He holds a BA from Spring Arbor University. Oh, it's a dude. Okay, my mistake. John Dwyer, I know the name, but I've never talked about him before. He's an author and a journalist, has deep roots in Oklahoma, where his family settled shortly after statehood. He began his career in journalism, eventually founding the Dallas-Fort Worth Heritage newspaper. Dwyer later returned to Oklahoma to write The Oklahomans, recognized with the Will Rogers Medallion Award, okay? And here's another few people on the list. Dennis Prager. I'm sure a lot of people probably know him. PragerU, not a real university, by the way. That animated kids show, Leo and Layla, yeah, that Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager is an American radio talk show host and writer known for hosting The Dennis Prager Show and co-founding PragerU in 2009. With a background in history and Middle Eastern studies from Brooklyn College, Prager's authored several books and has extensive experience in educational and public discourse. And then Robert Pondicio, I don't know that person either. And finally, David Barton. I'm sorry, not finally. There are a lot of others, but these are the ones I want to cover today. David Barton's a propagandist to the core. You know that whole Black Robe Regiment thing where pastors used to take off their pastor robes and underneath they'd have military greaves? What do you call them? I forget what you call them. Anyway, they'd have military uniforms and they would take their church after the service for rifle training. And they would outfit them with, you know, the best weapons and armor and everything else to fight in the Revolutionary War. That whole thing that I just said is made up. That never happened. It's fictitious, okay? David Barton made that up right off the top of his own head and even named it. The words Black Robe Regiment didn't appear in books at all until David Barton's first mention of it in the 1990s. He made that up. And now we have extremist churches organizing into full-blown companies or battalions or regiments, planning to plug into a larger army to fight Trump's enemies. That's all David Barton's doing. Says here, David Barton is an American author and founder of Wall Builders, LLC, an organization focused on America's founding principles. A lifelong resident of Aledo, Texas, Barton graduated from Aledo High School and earned a BA in religious education from Oral Roberts University. Oh yeah, he calls himself a constitutional scholar. He's not. He has no education in this subject. He just pretends that he does. And he just makes shit up, just like lies, pretends he knows, and makes claims completely off the cuff that don't match up with reality at all. Graduated Aledo High School, that might be one of the more surprising parts to me, and earned a bachelor's degree in religious education from Oral Roberts University. He has no idea what he is talking about, is the point. And these are the people that Ryan Walters chose to write the new curriculum. Again, this stuff isn't going to stick as long as we all know about it. If we're aware of this and we're spreading the word and working against this any way we can, he won't get away with it. If we just let him go off and do whatever he wants with absolutely no repercussions, with no media attention at all, no nothing, it would work more than likely. We need to fight this stuff. We need to fight it. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. These people are absolutely disgusting, and I can't believe anybody would ever pick Steve Deace for anything other than hanging people with Trump's ties. Like, what?
Matthew, and hang some Antifa members with it. That's what I want to say. I want to see him take the tie off. I want to see Antifa members hanging from gallows and Trump ties. That's what I would like to see. Yeah.
Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. These people need help for real. That's all I've got for you. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, don't forget to check me out on Patreon. And take a look at my YouTube channels. Owen Morgan, where I talk about religious issues. Telltale Fireside Chat, where I talk about politics. Telltale Unfiltered, where I do long-form breakdowns of stuff like this. And take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.